Hello, this is Ricardo Noriega, and I'm going to show you a quick demo about the deployment of Ushift, including the registration with the Advanced Cluster Manager with ACM. In the previous demo, we showed one workflow where we had to go to ACM, create a new entry to import a new cluster, and then deploy the device where Ushift is running, and the registration happens. Now what we are going to show is a different workflow where the registration process is initiated in the device, in the spoke cluster or managed cluster. So if we go to ACM, sorry, what it is. Here we have the Advanced Cluster Manager console. As you can see, there is no clusters imported into ACM. And in the previous demo, if you remember, we clicked on import an existing cluster. We put a name here. It's cluster test. We clicked on save import and generate code, and we generated the commands that we have to run in the managed cluster. But since we have this workflow with our device manager service and transmission, what we did was to basically export or extract the token that needed to go to our mac.yaml, and the clusterlet manifest would be automatically applied with that token. Here what we want to do, since this is like a manual step, what we are going to do is use a wider kubeconfig with more permissions. This is just a hack, it's not for production, but let's go here, and what we can do is basically, so this file is the kubeconfig file of our cluster, of the cluster where ACM is running, of the hub. And if you can see here, sorry, it has a bunch of certificates, and the context, the current context is admin. So what we have to do is basically encode this in 64, base 64, and put this string, this long string, into our mac.yaml. We have templated this, and if I go to my mac.yaml file that targets one specific device, as you can see here, the kubeconfig has been replaced by that string. The cluster name can be whatever, and this is the name that afterwards will appear in ACM. So we can put Ushift edge cluster new registration, let's say. Okay, so if I copy this YAML file to the S3 bucket, now we will see, now we have one device, right? So import disk image, browse local, Fedora IoT 03S, Fedora 33, 2 gigs of memory into CPUs, IoT 03S. We want to customize because we have to change the MAC address here. We copy the MAC address. Okay, we begin the installation. So once the device boots up, it will contact a URL that is baked in the image that points to the device manager. The device manager will pull the configuration based on this mac.yaml where we are pointing at a certain branch in a repo, etc. And it will replace a couple of variables like the cluster name for ACM, this kubeconfig file, etc. It will also start, stop, restart systemd services. It will download the O3s binary and start it. The whole bootstrap process will start. And this bootstrap process involves ACM. So here, let's see how it's doing. SSH Red Hat. Okay. kubectl get the pods. Okay, it's moving. Okay, now the containers are being created, the pods for all the control plane. We have to wait until clusterlet manifests are applied. By the way, these are here. Sorry, rlib manifest. Here in the clusterlet kubeconfig hub, it's a secret that contains the kubeconfig, the encoded version of the kubeconfig file from the hub. Now clusterlet is being applied. And very soon we will see a new cluster here. Then we will have to do 2 manual steps. In order to avoid that malicious clusters are imported into ACM and then have some kind of security leak, what we have to do is approve a certificate as a new CSR and patch the manage cluster object with a parameter that I will explain now. Okay, this is running. Okay, you see the new Microshift Edge cluster new registration appears here. So it's in failed state, but this is okay. What we have to do now is to go to manage cluster objects, and we have to log in. Okay, we see our incoming cluster there, and if you realize the hub accepted field is in false, so this is what we have to patch. So we edit the object, hub accept clients, we set this to true. Now the cluster, the imported cluster needs approval, and this is basically a certificate. So if we get CSR, you see it it has the name of the imported cluster. It's in pending condition, so we use OC administration certificate approve. Of course, we can automate this with some kind of auto-prover pod that runs a bash script that performs this periodically. So, and there we go. We have our imported cluster in ready state, and it's ready to be managed by ACM and deploy applications and so on. Thank you very much.